in espionage activities. Having concluded that the Vienna Convention is applicable in the present case, the court proceeds to examine the alleged violations by Pakistan of its obligations under Article 36 thereof. India contends in its final submissions that Pakistan acted in breach of its obligations under Article 36 of the Vienna Convention, first, by not informing India without delay of the detention of Mr. Jadhav. Second, by not informing Mr. Jadhav of his rights under Article 36. And third, by denying consular officers of India access to Mr. Jadhav, contrary to their right to visit him, to converse and correspond with him, and to arrange for his legal representation. The court will consider the alleged violations in chronological order. Turning now to India's submission regarding the alleged failure of Pakistan to inform Mr. Jadhav of his rights under Article 36, paragraph 1b of the Vienna Convention, the court recalls that under this provision, the competent authorities of the receiving state must inform a foreign national in detention of his rights in accordance with it. The court therefore needs to determine whether the competent Pakistani authorities informed Mr. Jadhav of his rights in accordance with this provision. In this respect, the court observes that Pakistan has not contested India's contention that Mr. Jadhav was not informed of his rights under Article 36, paragraph 1b of the Convention. To the contrary, in the written and oral proceedings, Pakistan consistently maintained that the Convention does not apply to an individual suspected of espionage. The court infers from this position of Pakistan that it did not inform Mr. Jadhav of his rights under Article 36, paragraph 1b of the Vienna Convention, and thus concludes that Pakistan breached its obligation to inform Mr. Jadhav of his rights under that provision. With regard to India's submission regarding the alleged failure of Pakistan to inform India without delay of the arrest and detention of Mr. Jadhav, the court recalls that Article 36, paragraph 1b of the Vienna Convention provides that if a national of the sending state is arrested or detained, and if he so requests, the competent authorities of the receiving state must, without delay, inform the consular post of the sending state. To examine India's claim that Pakistan breached its obligation under this provision, the court will consider first whether Mr. Jadhav made such a request, and second, whether Pakistan informed India's consular post of the arrest and detention of Mr. Jadhav. Finally, if the court finds that notification was provided by Pakistan, it will examine whether it was made without delay. Interpreting Article 36, paragraph 1b, in accordance with the ordinary meaning of the terms used, the court notes that there is an inherent connection between the obligation of the receiving state to inform a detained person of his rights under Article 36, paragraph 1b, and his ability to request that the consular post of the sending state be informed of his detention. Unless the receiving state has fulfilled its obligation to inform a detained person of his rights under Article 36, paragraph 1b, he may not be aware of such rights and consequently may not be in a position to make a request that the competent authorities of the receiving state inform the sending state's consular post of his arrest. The travaux préparatoires confirm the connection between the obligation of the receiving state to inform a detained person of his rights and his ability to request that the consular post of the sending state be informed of his detention. In light of the foregoing, the phrase, "if he so requests," must be read in conjunction with the obligation of the receiving state to inform the detained person of his rights under Article 36, paragraph 1b. The court has already found that Pakistan failed to inform Mr. Jadhav of his rights. Consequently, the court is of the view that Pakistan was under an obligation to inform India's consular post of the arrest and detention of Mr. Jadhav in accordance with Article 36, paragraph 1b of the Convention. Moreover, the court observes that when a national of the sending state is in prison, custody, or detention, an obligation of the authorities of the receiving state to inform the consular post of the sending state is implied by the rights of the consular officers under Article 36, paragraph 1c, to visit the national, to converse and correspond with him, and to arrange for his legal representation. The court now proceeds to the second question, that of whether Pakistan informed India of the arrest and detention of Mr. Jadhav. On 25 March 2016, the Foreign Secretary of Pakistan summoned the Indian High Commissioner in Islamabad to raise the matter of the arrest and issued a démarche protesting the illegal entry into Pakistan of an officer from India's foreign intelligence agency known as Research and Analysis Wing. The court observes that Article 36, paragraph 1b does not specify the manner in which the receiving state should inform the consular post of the sending state of the detention of one of its nationals. What's important is that the information contained in the notification is sufficient to facilitate the exercise by the sending state of the consular rights envisaged by Article 36, paragraph 1 of the Vienna Convention. Pakistan's action on 25 March 2016 enabled India to make a request for consular access on the same day. Under the circumstances, the court considers that Pakistan notified India on 25 March 2016 of the arrest and detention of Mr. Jadhav as required by Article 36, paragraph 1b of the Vienna Convention. The court now turns to the final question, that of whether the notification was given without delay. Pakistan claims that at the time of his arrest on 3 March 2016, Mr. Jadhav was in possession of an Indian passport bearing the name Hussain Mubarak Patel. In the circumstances of the present case, the court considers that there were sufficient grounds at the time of the arrest on 3 March 2016 or shortly thereafter for Pakistan to conclude that the person was or was likely to be an Indian national, thus triggering its obligation to inform India of his arrest in accordance with Article 36, paragraph 1b of the Vienna Convention. There was a delay of some 3 weeks between Mr. Jadhav's arrest on 3 March 2016 and the notification made to India on 25 March 2016. The court recalls that neither the terms of the Vienna Convention, as normally understood, nor its object and purpose suggested that without delay is to be understood as immediately upon arrest and before interrogation. The court also recalls that there is no suggestion in the travaux préparatoires that the phrase without delay might have different meanings in each of the 3 sets of circumstances in which it is used in Article 36, paragraph 1b. In the Avena case, the court's determination whether notification had been given without delay was made on the basis of each individual's circumstances. The court found that there had been a violation of the obligation to inform under Article 36, paragraph 1b with regard to a delay of just 40 hours when the foreign nationality of the detained person was apparent from the outset of his detention. However, the court found no violation in respect of a delay of 5 days when the foreign nationality was less obvious at the time of the arrest. Taking account of the particular circumstances of the present case, the court considers that the fact that the notification was made some 3 weeks after the arrest in this case constitutes a breach of the obligation to inform without delay as required by Article 36, paragraph 1b of the Vienna Convention. The court will now address India's third submission concerning the alleged failure of Pakistan to provide consular access to Mr. Jadhav. The court notes that Article 36, paragraph 1a of the Vienna Convention provides that, and I quote, consular officers shall be free to communicate with nationals of the sending state and to have access to them. Nationals of the sending state shall have the same freedom with respect to communication with and access to consular officers of the sending state. End of quote. Paragraph 1c provides inter alia, and I quote, that consular officers shall have the right to visit a national of the sending state who is in prison, custody, or detention to converse and correspond with him. End of quote. The court recalls that Article 36, paragraph 1 creates individual rights which by virtue of Article 1 of the optional protocol may be invoked in this court by the national state of the detained person. In the present case, it is undisputed that Pakistan has not granted any Indian consular officer access to Mr. Jadhav. India has made a number of requests for consular access since 25 March 2016. Pakistan responded to India's request for consular access for the first time in its note verbal dated 21 March 2017, in which it stated that, and I quote, the case for the consular access to the Indian national, Kulbhushan Jadhav, shall be considered in the light of Indian side's response to Pakistan's request for assistance in the investigation process and early dispensation of justice." End of quote. The court is of the view that the alleged failure by India to cooperate in the investigation process in Pakistan does not relieve Pakistan of its obligation to grant consular access under Article 36, Paragraph 1 of the Convention, and does not justify Pakistan's denial of access to Mr. Jadhav by consular officers of India. The court further notes that Article 36, Paragraph 1c provides that consular officers have the right to arrange legal representation for a detained national of the sending state. This provision presupposes that consular officers can arrange legal representation based on conversation and correspondence with the detained person. In the view of the court, Pakistan's contention that Mr. Jadhav was allowed to choose a lawyer for himself, but that he opted to be represented by a defending officer qualified for legal representation, even if it is established, does not dispense with the consular officer's right to arrange for his legal representation. The court therefore concludes that Pakistan has breached the obligations incumbent on it under Article 36, Paragraph 1a and c of the Vienna Convention by denying consular officers of India access to Mr. Jadhav, contrary to their right to visit him, to converse and correspond with him, and to arrange for his legal representation. Having concluded that Pakistan acted in breach of its obligations under Article 36, Paragraphs 1a, b, and c of the Vienna Convention, the court now proceeds to examine Pakistan's contentions based on abuse of rights. In this context, the court will determine whether India's alleged violations of international law invoked by Pakistan in support of its contentions based on abuse of rights may constitute a defense on the merits. In essence, Pakistan argues that India cannot request